Welcome to Humoranities with Sephora. Somehow, I committed to hosting a party for my daughter and 40 of her closest friends. To prepare, I did a Costco run to pick up snacks and drinks. I shopped online to find a backdrop and props for a photo booth. I bought fancy balloons and a new karaoke machine with disco lights. Just before the party, I woke up in the middle of the night and realized the disco lighting was insufficient, so I ordered some more lights for same day delivery. I shared my neuroses about lighting with a friend in a voice note, and she responded by saying, "Yes, you're the only person I know who would wake up in the middle of the night to buy disco lights. But that's because you like to make things as fun as possible for the kids." My friend's message got me thinking, am I trying to make this fun for them? Or am I trying to figure out how to have a great high school party because I'd never been to one before? This was my chance to have a good time too. While I do live vicariously through my children, I'm also trying to live for myself and explore all the things I've never had a chance to do. I was born and raised in the US, but there are so many traditionally American experiences I've never had. When I was a child, my only real view into American households was through watching television sitcoms like Family Ties or The Cosby Show. I wasn't much of an assimilated American kid at all either. I tried to play soccer for a year or two, but I was terrible. I was a Girl Scout for a couple of years, but I was in it for the camping and not the crafting. Camping wasn't something my older Asian parents would do, so even if the troop went just one time a year, it was an experience I could enjoy that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. We didn't have much money, and often we had just one car working well at any given time. I think at some point I lost interest in lots of formal activities because I hated having to ask others for rides to get to all the places involved. There were friends in the neighborhood I played with, but I was often left out too. They all ate supper, had bedtimes, and went to the same vacation Bible school. Forget about sharing those things in common with them. I didn't even know what those words meant. Why did I eat dinner and they ate supper? What time did bedtime occur if I stayed up watching the 11 o'clock news with my mom? Why do kids have to go on vacation to read the Bible? When I asked my parents for definitions, well, they knew that supper was basically dinner based on the American shows they used to watch growing up, and explained that a bedtime came from the fact that most kids go to bed at a set hour each night, unlike their own children. They were a little stumped by what a vacation Bible school was. I think I figured that one out after having kids myself and noticed spring and summer day camps advertised by local churches. At school, there were almost no other kids of other ethnicities, so while I was American ish by day, on weeknights and weekends, my household was a blend of British and South Asian foods, idiosyncrasies, and customs. As a child, I think I had a couple of friends over here and there. I think I can count on one hand the number of friends whose houses I visited. As a teenager, I think I only had one friend over and I'd sometimes go over to her house. There were dances in high school, but I never went. Maybe there were parties in high school? There must have been, but I was never invited. Maybe something about me gave the vibe I wouldn't come. I'll never know. During college breaks and when I first started working, I never had any friends over to my childhood home, where, of course, I still lived. I wish I could say it was because my parents were inhospitable, but that wasn't the case. My parents were crazy social people, and back then, their friends would pop over spontaneously for tea, and we would have small dinner parties all the time. We'd host family and friends from abroad quite frequently as well. I wasn't self conscious about hosting friends because of the size of my house or the savory spices lingering in the air after my parents cooked food. I know that's something other Asian kids would worry about, but not me. You would inevitably smell what was for dinner because our house was small. It didn't look like suburban houses on TV with the most up to date furnishings because it just didn't. My parents spent money on education and travel, not on style upgrades. Also, when it came to having company over, I didn't know how to be an American host in my home. How do you get past the awkwardness of an entrance and how do you sit? Keep in mind that I worried about those things because my family left their shoes at the door and often sat on the floor. This is totally normal now in lots of homes, but back then, I didn't see it happening on TV, so I didn't think it happened in real life for other people. I would worry about what we should eat if I was hosting. When I did have friends over a few times as a kid, my parents ordered pizza because that was safe. It was weird for us because we didn't really eat pizza at home. We would go out to have a personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut when we got straight A's quarterly, but that was about it. We had curries and rice daily. That would have been so embarrassing to serve back then. Now, kids don't bat an eyelash at international cuisines, and everyone loves a good Indian entree from Trader Joe's. And what to serve as a drink? My late teens and 20s were spent watching the show Friends, where coffee drinking was fashionable. Back when I was young, we drank chai, real chai, even the kids. To this day, I'm more confident about my chai making skills than even my ability to choose a coffee drink off a Starbucks menu. When I went to college, it was eye opening. I'd never lived with other quote unquote Americans before. It was hard to assimilate on a personal level. I made great friends, but not through social gatherings and parties. I didn't drink alcohol at all, so after a certain point, it was hard to be sociable with others. While I lived in a dorm, I had my own room where I sought refuge, secretly drinking chai alone while sitting on the floor. I don't think I ever properly hosted people at my place until sometime into my mid 20s and only after I got married. I had more freedom to decorate the space and more confidence to share what was different about me with other people. I think the first thing I hosted was a tea and dessert party for some female work colleagues. It was so fun to discover how many friends of mine had mismatched socks when they took their shoes off at the door. Flash forward to now. So many things are different for my daughters as compared to my own experience as a child and teen. First off, my parents were social, but while they never said no when I wanted to have friends over, they certainly weren't encouraging of it either. If I had almost no clue how to be American, I think my parents had even less of a clue. Secondly, my parents were well into their 50s when I was in elementary school, so they didn't really have the stamina to host kids or much energy to run around prepping for a party. Thirdly, my parents had very big and strong personalities, and I was a dreamer who was much quieter in comparison. I felt shy about how their personalities would come through in front of my friends, and I think my parents were aware of that too. Also, at some level, I thought I needed to have a big personality to be a host, and well, I didn't. It's only taken a couple of decades for me to realize that I'm different from my parents and that I'm me. Unlike my parents, I'm always encouraging my daughters to have their friends over and to share new things with them. I'm more energetic than my parents were, and my husband is a supportive man of action, willing to run out to get ice or party supplies at the drop of a hat. Fortunately, we have a house with space, furnishings, and a decor I'm not self conscious about, and a kitchen exhaust that effectively drives out food smells, just in case. Taking shoes off at the front door is not weird for anyone anymore, especially when 50% of the girls' friends are already of some variety of Asian descent. And my daughters are less self conscious about themselves than I was. Maybe they see more people who look like them, or maybe they're just fundamentally cooler than I ever was. Nonetheless, if I served a tray of biryani instead of pizza, I know the girls and their friends would squeal with pleasure rather than demur. If I served a proper South Asian cup of chai, I honestly think my daughter's friends would be happy to try something other than a hip latte from a cafe. Now, it could be that my peers from childhood and adolescence would have reacted with pleasure at the things I knew were different about me, my family, and my home, and perhaps I was just completely unaware that they'd be cool about it. If I hadn't had popular images of what people's houses and interactions were supposed to be like, I probably would have tread aimlessly and had a good time with friends over. Fortunately, in adulthood, I've watched lots more TV, traveled around the world, opened myself up to new experiences, and most importantly, entered many different people's homes to realize that most anything goes when it comes to where you sit and what you eat and drink. It's all human and universal, and any variations are simply to be enjoyed. Even if I still sometimes don't feel very American or assimilated into American culture, I know that what really matters when you're hosting is a big smile when you greet someone at your door. And as for my neuroses about party lighting, I'm still that quiet dreamer who likely has a deep seated desire to dance the night away to the backbeat of a Britney Spears song synchronized to my new disco lights. Thank you for listening to Humoranities. Enjoying the podcast? Please take a moment to rate it. And for more musings, visit humoranities.com and be sure to follow on all social media platforms.